that the National Commission will communicate with me about this. I took an opportunity to call him. The National Commission must indicate, Commissioner, that he was on leave at the time when I received this letter, when I saw this letter. He was on vacation leave. I cannot remember exact date. It could have been a Tuesday, but it was during the week when this letter came out. A weekend prior to that, which was a Saturday, the National Commissioner and the Minister of Police had visited KwaZulu-Natal province to come and support us as we were mourning the death of one of our colleagues. So there was a funeral that was taking place, that took place at the area of Mpangeni in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a Saturday. And when the funeral ended, the minister, in his own words, was that he's going to rest in the province, he's going to be around the province, so I must be aware of that. And the National Commissioner was going to be starting his leave on Monday, so we all went separate ways. National Commissioner traveled to Pretoria that Saturday evening, and the minister will have gone to his residence in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a Saturday. Sunday goes by, the Monday, I cannot remember the date, but 2 or 3 days later, the letter surfaced. So the National Commission has just taken leave. So that what troubled me, because I find it odd that you cannot have a National Commissioner or the minister writing a letter to the National Commissioner that has got such content and these allegations, if the minister had not discussed this with the National Commissioner somewhere before. Perhaps it's just formalizing the communication that he had had with the National Commission. That's why then I took a decision to contact the National Commission to try and establish from him whether is he aware about this letter, has he been told about this establishment. And the National Commissioner's response was that he is on leave, which his leave is going to end on the 14th of January, and he hasn't had an opportunity to consider the content of the letter. But he had nothing to do with the disbandment and of this political killings task team. And he also informed me that the Minister of Police has never sought his advice before taking this decision. So I also advised him that I also had not been engaged about the decision of the minister. So that is the first engagement I had with the National Commissioner as he was on leave.
He was still on leave at the time you had that engagement?
That is correct.
Before then we discuss what you did next. Can I go back to an issue you raised and you said it's not part of your statement? And that relates to your contact with the Chief of Staff in the Minister's office. And if I recall correctly, you said the Chief of Staff informed you that the letter was going to and fro. I think those are the words you used. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
What do you know between who that letter was going to and fro?
Commissioners, I did not ask him who are these back and forth, but my conclusion was that the drafters of the letter were on the other side of the country.
Country, you said?
So the other side of the country, because the minister was in KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay.
So the drafters would have been elsewhere, not together with the minister. And the correspondence will have gone to the Chief of Staff, who then directed to the minister. And perhaps the minister will not be happy with some content and he will bring it back to the Chief of Staff, and the Chief of Staff will send it to the drafters. That's why the back and forth statement come from. That is my assumption. Okay. And eventually, after the signature was placed on the document, then the Chief of Staff was, on his own words, pressured to make sure that the National Commissioner's Office receives and acknowledges the receipt on the letter on the day. So he never told me who pressured him to do that. So I guess the investigation will be able to discover where did the letter originate from before the minister signs it.
The pressure was on the Chief of Staff.
That is correct, Commissioner. according to his own words.
Over what period, if you know, was the minister in KZN? I know from the time of the funeral. When was the funeral? And do you know up to what point?
I do not know the duration that the minister was in KZN for, but actually I don't even know when he arrived in KZN, but the funeral was on the Saturday, which was the last Saturday of December. The funeral was on that Saturday in KwaZulu-Natal, and on the 2nd is when this letter was signed. And when we separated on the day of the funeral, the minister told me that he's going to be in the province. So whether he had left the province maybe between the funeral day and the date of the letter, I do not know.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair. So the National Commissioner was not able to shed any better light on the letter because he says he wasn't aware of it, he was not engaged before it was crafted and dispatched, and he didn't know anything about it. That's what you... What then did you do next?
Commissioners, I made a suggestion to the National Commissioner that he must speak to the minister in order to be able to establish the factors that made the minister to consider arriving in this conclusion and a drastic decision to disestablish the team. Because in my views, it was an irrational and irregular. The decision was going to have a serious impact, as I said, in terms of the investigation of crime and those cases that were before the team. And also in the main, because I, as per the Constitution, given the responsibility to make sure that policing is done in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and the population of over 12.5 million, we're going to look at me as having failed them. So the consequence of a sudden stop of investigation was going to impact on us as the South African Police Service in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and myself as a person responsible for the work that needed to be done.
And do you know whether or not the National Commissioner acted on your request to engage the minister and establish the issues that you've highlighted?
Well, I did not hear from the National Commissioner after that. Commissioners, as the time were progressing, I did not know. He never really came back to me to tell me what is the next course of action, but it continuously signs off the extension of the deployment of the team in the province, regardless of the letter.
And you indicate that you took some resolutions following the National Commissioner's failure to report back to you on any contact and conversation he may have had with the minister. What were those steps you took?
Part of the, if I hear the question correct, Commissioner, on what I did after speaking to the National Commissioner, and National Commissioner not able to come back to me.
Yes.
I said earlier I had engagement with the Chief of Staff right at the beginning because he's a person I knew very well. And I even requested the Chief of Staff that he must try and arrange a meeting with the minister so that we can be able to tell the minister about the consequence of the letter that he has written. And after engaging with the National Commissioner, I did not leave it there. I continuously tried different individuals outside the structure of government, people that I thought the minister might listen to. I tried to engage them, to try and reach out to the minister so that we can talk about this. But that did not give me any success. I then took a decision to engage the minister directly in the form of a WhatsApp that I sent him. He acknowledged that, and he was to set up a meeting, but to date, that meeting never materialized.
General, you seem to have skipped paragraph 126 as another step that you took. Do you want to speak to that?
That is correct, Commissioner. In my effort to try and make sure that we get to engage with the minister about this matter, part of my request to the National Commissioner was that if he's not able to get an audience with the minister to talk about this, the least he must do is to approach the head of state, the president, because he accounts to the president, and the president knows about the establishment of this team and the work that the team is doing over these years. So he must be informed about what the minister has done, and I wanted the National Committee to establish whether is the president aware of the decision of the minister, is he supporting this decision of the minister? Because as a provincial commissioner, I can't go directly to the president, so I needed to engage my boss, which is the national commissioner, to reach out to his boss, the president, because, of course, the executive authority, the minister, taking a decision that seems to be contrary to what we are doing as the police. I also wanted to indicate, I reminded the National Commissioner that the work of this team was as a result of the interministerial committee. This is not a South African police service operation. This is an integrated operation which account to a group of ministers as doing oversight on behalf of the president. So it cannot be correct then that one minister takes a decision without being part of the collective, or even so, the decision that is taken is an operational decision, whereas the IMC at the beginning did not participate in the formation of the team. It was the National Commission that signs off the formation of the team. The IMC were only presented with a strategy that we're going to do, which they adopted, they agree with us, and they will have received or gave their opinions if there was no need for that to continue anymore. They will have convened us and told us that the country is okay now, the murder rates have gone down that are targeted to the politicians, or therefore you might want to reconsider this operational approach that you are doing and maybe revisit the strategy, but that didn't happen. So that was our concern.
And did you receive a report back from the National Commissioner whether he's attempted to speak to the President?
No, unfortunately, I did not receive a report back. I do not know what was engagement. It is for that reason, Commissioner, that without receiving that, I personally reached out to the chairperson of the portfolio committee as an oversight body to the police work, because I realize it looks like every door I'm knocking, nothing is happening. National Commissioner, please speak to the minister, it's not happening. National Commissioner, check with the president, I'm not getting a feedback. And the next body that I must engage is an oversight body, which is Parliament. I then contacted the chairperson of the portfolio committee, Honorable Cameron, myself. I requested him to invite me to the portfolio committee. Ordinarily, I was not supposed to be part of the portfolio committee. But through my request, he invited me to be part of that portfolio committee. It is that portfolio committee where I was able to then express my feelings about this decision in the presence of both the National Commissioner and the Minister. But even that effort failed. Nothing happened as a result. So those are all the efforts that I did.
Thank you, Ms. Silla.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just to remind you, General, there's a portion in your statement where you elaborate further on these steps, and we will get back to it. And in particular, the engagement you had with the portfolio committee, because that's the first place where you were engaged by potential decision makers on the matter. All other previous efforts had been unsuccessful. But before we get there, getting back to our page 44, and I'm at paragraph 127, I'm going to invite you to read your paragraph 127 into the record. And then I point out before you do so that, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, that's conjecture on your part. It's not a fact what is in 127. So if you're going to read it, I need you to explain what informs or what leads you to form that conclusion.
Commissioner, on this paragraph, I wrote that at this stage, it had become clear to me at least that the minister issued a directive based on advice that, other than the, based on the records, official records of the SAPS. It was an advice from someone that would have told the minister. So I strongly suspected that that advice the minister received was the one to disband the task team. And it is my feeling, Commissioner, that after having received these continuous briefing from the Gauteng counterintelligence operation about the work that they are doing in Gauteng and the sensitivity of the cases they are investigating and the extent of corruption that they are experiencing with these investigations, that for sure someone believed, because there were threats against the 2 detectives of Gauteng, and the 10 members of the political killings task team had came to Gauteng to assist. Hence, they became part of the project. Someone thought that the political killings task team was the one that was responsible for the investigations in Gauteng towards these criminal syndicates that we had alluded to, we spoke about earlier, which involved in the participation of senior police officers in the South African Police Service, especially at the head office, as well as the senior politicians and their associate. So somebody believed that it is the political killings task team that was based with the Gauteng investigation. That was my conclusion, that whoever advised a minister advised him to close the team because they thought it is the team that is doing that investigation.
Now, and I did qualify that that is your conclusion, and in this paragraph at least, you don't substantiate that conclusion or provide a basis for that conclusion. My question to you is, do you personally have any evidence, or is there anyone within the investigative arm or involved in the investigations who would be able to adduce sufficient evidence to at least support the conclusion you have drawn? Do you know of the existence of such evidence?
Commissioners, I am aware of the evidence that was extracted as the team in Gauteng were investigating, which made me reach the conclusion that indeed this is what made someone to influence the minister to close it, because the evidence that we're going to present later by someone who's going to come before this commission who were part of this Gauteng investigation, they uncovered that communication within the syndicates was making a reference to the team, not being understanding that what is happening in Gauteng is for Gauteng, is not for KZN.
You say communication between the syndicate, but you are not implying that that communication extended to the minister, are you?
To some degree, the associates, as I referred to here on this paragraph, are associates of the minister. And the very same associate does show communication that seems to suggest that the minister is fully involved in the decision that this syndicate is taking.
do you accept the responsibility on your part to substantiate fully, not necessarily today, but in the fullness of time, the conclusions you have drawn in that paragraph?
Yes, Commissioners, evidence is there on the record, although some of it will perhaps require to be covered in camera, but the evidence is there that will support my conclusion on this. The individuals, the colleagues, as I said earlier, my July briefing was a collective effort. Men and women who are part of the investigation in Gauteng, who knows and they've gathered evidence to support the allegations that we ended up making. And they are going to come before this commission and they're going to present that evidence. We will be able, under oath, to confirm that indeed that is evidence that we've collected. And we have no reason not to believe that it is the real evidence that proves the linkages between the syndicates and the minister himself.
I suspect the commissioners will flag that particular paragraph and the allegations you make there, and we'll see where the commission goes and whether or not eventually the evidence is adduced. Continuing with your statement, however, from paragraph 129 to paragraph 137, you basically deal with the experience of the task team, the efforts of the task team, the reports continuously made by the task team in challenging the conclusion arrived at by the minister in his letter of the 31st. You see that? Would you like to briefly touch on the issues that you raise in those paragraphs?
Commissioner, referring to paragraph 129.
I'm referring to from paragraph 129, where you engage now with the letter, and you stated in the letter, I quote, the minister claims that his observation is that the existence of this team is no longer required. I do not know what facts support the minister's conclusion. I deny the correctness of the minister's conclusion and aver that they are wholly baseless. That's what you stated 129. In succeeding paragraphs, you then engage with the basis for why you disagree with the minister's conclusion. And that's what I would like you to summarize for the benefit of the commission. And that should take you to 137, paragraph 137.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. As I indicated earlier, that this political killings task team is one of many task teams that are running in the country. So for the minister to isolate the political killing task team alone raises question. And for the conclusion that the minister says that the team does not add any value, the value of the police is to prevent crime, to investigate crime, and bring the perpetrators thereof to justice. And this team has demonstrated that. So I did not understand the value the minister was referring to. Whether it was privy to the success, the achievement of the team or not, it's something perhaps the commission will be able to bring, because to date I've never had an opportunity to ask him. These are questions I wanted to ask him, and I never had an opportunity to ask. So therefore it could not be justified that the team, with these stats that it has, that it can just be classified as a team that does not add value in the work of the police in the country. And as I said, commissioners, that this team, through their success rate, they were even given a task that went beyond the scope of the work on their inception, and they were tasked to go and work in the Eastern Cape, and they were given the responsibility to investigate cases of traditional leaderships and the likes. So it cannot be then correct for the minister to say a team that is recognized, and it's the only one that has been recognized like this in the country. For such a team to simply make an allegation that it does not add value. It's wrong. In all front, that's why I disagree with what the minister said. It is simply inconceivable that the entire operational management of the SAPS, under the leadership of the National Commissioner, who will see the value of this team and the efforts, the dedication, the times that these members, officers have spent away from home for years in order to assist in dealing with the reduction of our leaders of our country, the matters of our leaders of our country, that it is therefore seen by a minister as not adding value. So the sacrifice of these police officers, the recognition that the National Commissioner has made over these members, the support and the appreciation that the Interministerial Committee has expressed, including the President himself, when he was briefed about the work of this team, and he expressed it, Commissioners, not only to the IMC at one stage, he spoke directly to the investigator, to the members themselves, where he said, you are doing a good job, when he was briefed. So for all that, for the minister to come and say it doesn't add any value when everyone else is recognizing, was very bizarre, to say the least. So the reason I advance annually for the continuation of this team are those reflected in the very same reports that we're giving to the IMCs, because those reports were indicating the work still that needs to be done, the success rate the team has achieved in order to motivate the continuing existence of the team. To this extent, the minister, as a newly appointed minister to the post, having appointed in May last year, under this administration, may have required a historic perspective, the understanding of what this team has been doing before he signs this letter. He need only have had regard, ask the office, his office, to finish him with reports that were already available in his office, which were the IMC reports that are giving the status of the work of the team. He will have received that and get a briefing on it, or at least he will have engaged with the president. But prior to engaging the president, he will have called for this reporting from myself or whoever that was part of this team, in order to understand before he engages the president on the work of this team. So, for the reason unknown to me, the minister elected not only to rely on saying that the team does not add any value, but he decided to issue a directive to disestablish the team. I must say, commissioners, although not written here, that in his own words, I think it will be in the record of Parliament, where the minister said he had indicated an engagement with the president about this decision that he has taken. So that's why he stands by his decision. So, which then is strange, because the National Commission has never received anything to counter that. So it remains his utterances that we do not know whether he can justify on why he reached that conclusion. So my concern...
Can I, if I may?
Yes.
And I do so with the eye on the clock now, because the chair had, I think, had put a cut-off hour of 4. I just want to, continuing on what you have in your statement, in the order as it appears, you raise a second different specific concern regarding the minister's decision, and this you deal with at paragraph 134. I would like you to highlight that particular concern to the commission, please.
As I said, commissioners, that the work of the team was not as a result of the Minister of Police, but was a result of the Interministerial Committee. So my concern in the main was the seeming undermining of the Interministerial Committee by the Minister of Police, because the letter does not suggest that the IMC had approved this dissolution of the team, nor that the mandate was given by the IMC to dissolve this team. The minister has to date not advised of any IMC's decision with regard to the work of the team to date.
Okay. Now, I'll take us briefly to the dissolution, the disestablishment letter, if one can call it that, of the minister. We went through it, we highlighted what the directives were concerning the filling of the posts of, for the intelligence division regarding ports of entry and the political task team. That would be at pages 185 to 186. Now, if you cast your eye on that document, does the minister say anything about what must happen to the dockets at the time being handled by the task team upon dissolution of the team? Does he instruct or give guidance on what should happen in that letter?
The minister's letter does not say anything about the case dockets specific. So he did not direct on what must be done on this docket. I am informed that the determination on what must happen to the docket was taken by General Sibia through the written correspondence that he directed to his subordinate, which is the head of detectives, Lieutenant General Sentumule.
So you annex further as MK10, a letter dated the 4th of February 2025. This is authored by General Sibia, and you say that it was directed to General Sentumule. Could you just briefly tell us who's General Sentumule, whether she and how, fit in and how?
Lieutenant General Sentumule is a divisional commissioner responsible for crime detection in the country. And she is stationed at the head office, resulting under General Sibia as a Deputy National Commissioner.
Your MK10, Annex MK10 starts from page 187. If you could turn to that. And you say it is this document that contained the determination as regards the fate of the dockets, the task team dockets. Is
That is correct.
And what is the fate as determined by General Sibia in this letter?
In the main, the Sibia is instructing the divisional commissioner to ensure that the cases under investigation, the instruction by the Minister of Police, the directive of the day of the 31st of December, which was issued by the Minister of Police, that this directive be implemented immediately. And that's why on his letter, he makes a reference that in compliance with this directive, he, as General Sibia, is directing that the Divisional Commissioner Crime Detection must engage with the Divisional Commissioner Crime Intelligence.
Yes. And I understand that, in summary, the directive there is all the dockets should be directed to a specific place at national office outside the KZN area. Is my understanding correct?
That is correct.
Now, do you know if you, I'll put it differently, if you, and that's assuming you had the authority, if you were, as a provincial commissioner, were to decide to disband a task team operating in KwaZulu-Natal with dockets on matters relating to on dockets relating to issues and crimes arising in KZN, what would automatically happen to those dockets? If a task team in KwaZulu-Natal is disbanded, and I will assume for purposes of this question that it correctly disbanded, what automatically happens to those dockets that the task team handled?
A case dockets, commissioners, belong to a police station. The case is open at police station, get registered, is going to have a case number of a particular police station. The docket might be investigated by a specialized unit, a task team, or whatever that is established. But on conclusion thereof, it goes back to the police station where it was registered. So if there was a decision to stop the work of this task team on dockets that are already finalized, will need to be returned back to the stations, and dockets that are still under investigation will also need to be returned back to the very same stations. So that those dockets have been allocated to different investigators at the station so that the work or investigation work can continue.
So what would be the basis to treat these particular 121 dockets differently, and that instead of going back to their respective police stations, that they are directed to come to national office? Would you know the basis for that?
I just did not know what could be the reason, although later I discovered what could be the motive. Perhaps we'll discuss that later.
We'll discuss that later, particularly what could be, but let's try and stick to fact for the moment. Commissioner Baloyi?
Thank you. Ms. Silo, before you step off the letter, and let me direct this so that you can formulate it your way to the general. In this letter, and maybe it's because I'm not familiar with police speak, where in this letter do you say that there's an instruction to deliver the dockets to head office?
I think I can assist that by referring to the next annexure.
Okay.
Which is annexure, it's the same annexure, it's a series of letters. It starts at page 190. And the annexure, the letter at page 190 is dated the 22nd of 2025. And that also is issued by General Sibia. At item 2 of that letter, at item 1, General Sibia cross-references the letter under discussion together with another one of a previous date, 17th of January. At item 2, he states that in compliance with the Minister's Directive of the 31st of December 2024 and subsequent directives on the matter, you are advised that this process should be finalized by Thursday, 24th April 2025. And it says this includes the transfer of all dockets, closed, currently under investigation and in court to the Division Detective and Forensic Services. This is once again directed to the Divisional Commissioner, Crime Intelligence and Detective and Forensic Services, same as the previous letter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarified.
You followed my explanation to the Commissioner General?
Yes, Commissioner, I could just confirm that the annexure, the marked 190, paragraph 2 is specific to that.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, General. So then it's clarified that at least in those 2 letters, the decision or the directive instruction is that the dockets be dealt with in the manner articulated at page 190, which is transfer of the dockets, whether closed, currently under investigation and in court, to the Division Detective and Forensic Services. Earlier, when we put up the organogram, and I checked my understanding with you, I'd understood that division to be a national division and to be one of the divisions that are under the auspices of General Sibia's division as Deputy Commissioner? Deputy National Commissioner. Deputy National Commissioner, yes. Am I correct in my understanding?
That is correct, Commissioner, as I put out in the structure that There are 3 deputies under the National Commissioner at the head office. Each of the deputies is overseeing specific functions. So in this regard, this division, detective and forensic service, it's a division that is headed by Lieutenant General Sintumule, and it results under the responsibility of the Deputy National Commissioner Crime Detection, which is Lieutenant General Sbiya.